Good evening. We are not here for entertainment, and we are not recruiting you for anything. This is classwork. It is shared work, inner work, and tonight we take it up together as if this were our living room and the door were closed to the world. There is no organization behind this, no lists, no memberships, and no one can join it. The only bond that holds us in this room is a spiritual bond. And if that bond is not felt, there is nothing I can say that will create it. If it is felt, almost nothing needs to be said. But we will say it because words, when they are transparent to spirit, become a doorway you can walk through and walk through again tomorrow morning when the house of thought begins to rattle. For some of you, this will be the first glimpse of freedom. You have sought it in many disguises, in persons, in positions, in prescriptions. You have been disappointed often enough to come tonight with a quiet readiness, and that is good. For others, this will be a reminder of what you once knew with an afterglow, so real, so warm, that you wondered why it did not stay. You did not mean to lose it. It simply faded the way sunsets fade, and you woke the next day under the same old sky. And for still others, this hour will uncover why you have been slipping back. Even while reading more, saying more, collecting more spiritual sentences and wondering why your feet feel heavier on the same road. You are all welcome. We are one class because there is only one question behind all these faces. Why does spiritual light come and then seem to go? And what holds it fast so that life is lived in it and not in memory of it? Now, I must say this as plainly as I can, and if the voice presses a little, it is only because love insists upon your safety. Freedom is hard to win. It is much harder to retain, not because God withdraws, not because truth expires at midnight like a ticket, but because attention, our attention, drifts. It drifts as a boat drifts when the oars pause and the current resumes its ancient pull. It drifts not into gross sins, perhaps, but into respectable habits of thought, the world's respectable explanations, good human counsel, the newspaper's version of reality, the flesh and blood authority of appearances. And while none of those can erase God, every one of them can occupy your awareness until God is, for that hour, a footnote. The light does not go out. You simply face the other way. Therefore, the real work set before us is not the winning of a moment of illumination. Many of you have had that. You have known an hour, a night, a season when the burden rolled away and you laughed at your own fear because it seemed so impossible that you had ever believed it. The real work is learning the way of living that does not lose it. The way of living that, in the marketplace and kitchen, in the office and hospital corridor, maintains conscious union. That way of living is not an athletic strain. It is not a tightening of the will. It is a fidelity, a watchfulness, a gentle turning of the face Godward again and again, until the habit of it becomes your atmosphere, and you breathe from within rather than gulping at the air of public opinion. Let me tell you what I mean by freedom so we do not chase the wrong bird into the wrong forest. Freedom, as we speak of it here, is not the permission to do as you please. It is the release from the necessity to please the senses, the crowd, the ego. It is the end of fear as a governing law. Freedom is the quiet knowing that your life is God-governed, that supply, companionship, safety, wisdom flow not from outer arrangements, but from an inner presence that is forever saying, I am. Freedom is the felt certainty that you are not at the mercy of conditions, because conditions are at the mercy of the consciousness through which God is appearing. Freedom is being able to look on a report, good or bad, praise or blame, check or bill, and not hitch your soul to it. You may have preferences, you may take steps, you may answer the phone and do your work, but you do not surrender your government to any of it. That is freedom. And so the question of the evening is not, will God be faithful? God is not man that he should falter by noon and change his mind by dusk. The question is, will we learn and will we guard the art of attention? Will we live in such a way that the inner union is first and all else is next? Ah, my friends, if you can grasp only this tonight, you will have an anchor for the rest of the series. Illumination is a beginning, not an end. The star over Bethlehem did not end the journey, it started it. The light by which you saw yesterday's fear for what it was will not do tomorrow's seeing unless you turn, again, to that same light and not to yesterday's memory of it. We do not accomplish this as a club, through dues, through a badge, through a rule book that you can wave at yourself. The infinite way, if we must call it something, is not organized in a way that can hold you. There is no office you can telephone at midnight to keep your attention from sliding back into the world. There is no human obligation you can sign that will make you faithful. In a sense, that is the terror of it. In a deeper sense, that is the glory. Your freedom is so free that you must choose it again and again, without compulsion, without the policeman of religion standing over you with threats and promises, which means that your safety is in your own conscious union. Your fidelity is to the presence within, and the joy is that this is possible, practical, demonstrable. Now, if in these first minutes you are sensing a tenderness and at the same time a warning, you are hearing correctly. It is tender because God is not far, not fickle, not bargaining with you. It is a warning because every one of us knows the ease with which we can be dazzled by a good human argument and then wonder, 2 days later, where our peace went. Tonight we open the window and breathe that inner air again. We identify ourselves not as bodies seeking God, but as consciousness awakening to its source. And we set the work before us, to learn the way of living that does not lose what has been given. If you will walk with me through that, step by step, if you will lend your attention not to me, but to the presence that speaks when we are quiet, then before this classwork is ended, you will not be asking if freedom is possible. You will be practicing how to retain it. We will proceed simply. No dramatics, just the message, as it has been given to me through experience, the same experience that has saved many of you from despair, and will save many more in this room and beyond it. And if, now and then, when I am on this platform and the Spirit comes upon me, I forget where the clock is, well, forgive me. The message flows, and the minutes go, and we awaken together to the one question and the one answer. Keep the inner government, and you will keep the freedom. What you touched was real. You did not imagine it. That hour when the burden slipped from your shoulders, that morning when you woke and there was no fear in your chest, that quiet in which you seemed to listen and knew without a voice that all is well. My friends, that was not psychological self-talk, that was not suggestion, that was not my words impressing your mind. That was contact, that was conscious union. Even if it appeared only as a breath-long stillness, a momentary dissolving of the edges, it was nevertheless the center made known. It was I in the midst of you, declaring itself. Do not let the mind, now that the glow has dimmed, reclassify your own miracle as mood. It was real. Then why did it fade? Why did you wake 2 days later with the old ache nibbling at your thought? Not because the presence departed, not because grace is a visitor who leaves when the tea is finished. No, it faded for one very simple, very quiet reason. Without announcing it to yourself, you shifted the center of authority. In that first hour of peace, you leaned wholly into the invisible. You did not consult the bank, the newspaper, the flesh, or the crowd. You breathed from within. But as the routine reassembled itself, telephone, headlines, the bill in the mail, the doctor's report, the compliment, the disapproval, your attention turned outward again, and with it, your reliance. You began to measure life by appearances, to take counsel from sensations, to weigh safety by figures, to gauge worth by applause. The presence was still present. You were simply listening elsewhere. The shift is never announced with drums. It is a nod, a small bargain, a courteous bow to the old magistrates. I will keep God, we say to ourselves, and also keep my securities. I will trust the invisible, and I will keep one hand on the world's lever, just in case. Oh, that sounds prudent. It sounds mature. But it is a divided counsel. A house divided against itself cannot stand. You cannot serve two masters, not because of a jealous deity, but because consciousness cannot be governed by contrary authorities at the same time. Either the within is the measure of the without, or the without is the measure of the within. Either you are God-governed and the forms of life conform, or you are circumstance-governed and your soul takes its orders from reports. Let me give you the feel of this in your own day. You leave a class like this, and on the way home you say inside yourself, quietly, "Thank you, Father. There is warmth. There is lightness." You reach your doorstep and the post has arrived. There is a bill, larger than expected. Right there, in that inch of time, the temptation whispers, "Good, good, keep your God. But let us be intelligent. Let us worry a little while. Let us do figures. Let us pick up the old fear just to make sure we do not get careless." Or you sit with a friend who, with great love, shares the world's analysis of why your case is difficult, why the economy is as it is, why your body at such and such an age must expect such and such an experience. The mind nods, the face nods, and then, without your knowing it, your heart nods. The center has moved. You have consented to be circumstance-governed. You have assigned authority to appearances. Now let us be fair to ourselves. We have been trained, from childhood, to believe that reality is what five senses report, that safety is what accounts reveal, that wisdom is what the majority concludes. Those are deep grooves, and so the first light does not erase the groove. It opens a new path through the wood. If you turn from it to the old road, do not condemn yourself. See what happened. Name it. It is this. You preserved God as a value while returning management to appearances. You tried to keep both systems operative. It will not do. It cannot do. The oil and the water do not mingle. Therefore, I must make the contrast as bright as day. A life lived from within is God-governed. In that life, guidance precedes decision, peace precedes plan, supply flows as function, relationship is fellowship because it is God meeting itself as brother, sister, husband, wife, friend. Your actions are outward forms of an inner assurance. You do your figures, you read your paper, you see your physician, you meet your obligations, but always as one who knows that wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, love, safety, supply are not in those channels but pouring through them from the invisible. A life lived from without is circumstance-governed. In that life, conditions set your peace, reports set your decisions, other people's faces prophesy your worth, numbers prophesy your safety, and you ride the roller coaster of praise and blame until your stomach is too sick for breakfast. To say it simply, in the one, the branch abides in the vine, and fruit is inevitable. In the other, the branch imitates a tree and wonders why it is thirsty. We will speak more of this, but you already know the truth of it. Now, here is the secret test that comes after any awakening, and it is why the afterglow fades without your knowing. The next temptation does not come dressed in old rags. It comes in a respectable suit. It says, be spiritual, of course, read more, speak truth, and let us be sensible. Assert your personal will to ensure it works. It says, use God to get supply for your project. It says, take pride, holy pride, in the insight you had last week. Hold it up and admire it. Perhaps tell it twice. It says, fear is not fear, it is prudence. Worry is not worry, it is responsibility. and you, with a sincere desire to be upright, may accept that counsel. In that moment, the center moves again. The ego borrows spiritual words to keep its throne. The mind turns union into technique, and the freedom that was pure gift becomes a program supervised by the old foreman. You see why I am pressing this diagnosis. It is not scolding, it is safety. If you can catch the instant in which authority shifts, you can prevent a night of darkness. If you can hear the inner yes, but that rises when spirit has spoken, you can stop before you sell your birthright for a mess of pottage. Stop where? Stop within. Rest, remember, not as willpower, not as an argument with a bill or a report, but as a return of attention to where the authority actually is. We will practice that together. For tonight, let it be enough to know that what you touched was God, and that it did not go. Our afterglow fades, not because the sun has set, but because we turned our chair to face the shadow on the wall and called it real. Therefore, be gentle with yourselves, and very clear. Do not try to keep God and also the little altars of human reassurance. Throw no altars down in anger. Simply cease to light their candles. Stand in your room. Stand at your desk. Sit in the waiting room and quietly acknowledge where government resides. I and the Father are one. If that is true, it is true at the mailbox. It is true in the market. It is true in the night watch when the mind would rehearse tomorrow. In the degree that you do this, the afterglow will lengthen into daylight, and daylight will settle into a way of living, not perfect overnight, but steady, not dramatic, but demonstrable. And the old centers of authority will lose their glamour because you will have found the one center, and you will have tasted for yourself that it governs. Freedom is hard to win. It is much harder to retain. The reason is not mysterious. The test comes after the victory. The first light breaks the shell, but it also awakens everything in you and around you that has been living comfortably in the dark. And so, when you have said inwardly, "Thank you, Father," when peace has visited your chest and your mind has grown clear enough to see through yesterday's fear, that is precisely when the next voice steps forward, not the crude one, not the one that wanted you to waste your life in obvious indulgences. No, after awakening, temptation changes its clothing. Before awakening, temptation says, "Come on, gratify yourself. You deserve it." It says, "Ignore conscience, take the shortcut. No one will know." And you know, in those days you fought it as a moral battle, and often lost by inches and won by inches. After awakening, temptation does not speak that way. It puts on a tie. It borrows your spiritual vocabulary. It says, protect the light, manage the experience, prove it, be right, be the teacher. It says, guard your peace by pushing away anyone who disturbs it. It says, demonstrate by forcing a result on a schedule. It says, speak the truth loudly so they will know you have it. And all the while, the center of authority is being escorted out of the inner sanctuary and back to the public square. Now I must make this very plain, because many of you have met this gentleman already and have shaken his hand thinking he was a friend. The double danger after awakening is twofold. First, the subtlety doubles. The suggestion is respectable, even noble. Second, the strength doubles. The ego, newly educated, now has better tools. It has phrases, it has concepts, it remembers moments of power. It remembers that when you were quiet, the pain stopped, and now it uses that memory to sell you a program. Do this 3 times a day, and you will control your life. The mind seizes what was a gift and writes a manual for manipulating effects. And you, being sincere, follow it until the living breath is gone and only technique is left, and you ask, where did the presence go? It did not go. You went with the program. Let us bring it into the daylight of common experience, so no one here leaves with a theory. You have a morning of peace. You pour your coffee, and before the steam has faded, the phone hums with a news alert. Your finger moves almost by itself. Just to be informed, it says. 5 headlines later, the body is tight, the jaw is set, a commentary is forming, and you have not yet noticed that your attention has bowed to a screen and taken its orders from the world's drumbeat. Or, after a sweet assurance concerning your body, you keep the appointment, and you must keep it. But you walk into the office already surrendered to the verdict you have not yet heard, rehearsing the worst in order to be brave. You come out and say, "At least I am realistic." Realistic? Perhaps. God-governed? No, you slid the reins into the hands of appearances before a word was spoken. Or you feel the inflow of supply as rest and right function. You go to your desk and open the books as you should, but your eye catches a red number and immediately the old schoolmaster calls roll, panic, hurry, bargain, grasp. "We must get busy," he shouts. "We must send the letters. We must remind the client. We must make this happen." You call it prudence. It is fear with a new hat. Or, in the tenderest room of all, you experience spiritual companionship with one you love, God meeting itself as husband, wife, friend, and then, in the name of protecting it, you begin to manage it. Watch the phone, watch the tone, watch the timing, run little tests to see if you are still valued. You call it care. It is control disguised as devotion. In every such case, the garment is respectable. The inner fact is the same. The branch has set up a pump to replace the vine. I am not scolding you. I am describing the weather in which we all must learn to walk. The pull outward is as old as Eden, and after you glimpse dominion, the pull becomes polite, educated, even spiritual sounding. That is why the warning must be as clear as a bell. After awakening, temptation is not cruder. It is more refined. It quotes scripture. It flatters your sincerity. It invites you to be the custodian of your own grace. And, listen closely, it will often appeal to your desire to be right, not true. Right. Right in the argument, right in the interpretation, right in the pecking order of spiritual circles. If it cannot get you through the craving to indulge, it will try through the craving to correct. Either way, your eyes are off the center. Therefore, we introduce a new word into our way of living. Watchman. Not a policeman with a club, not a neurotic inspector of every thought. A watchman, calm, awake, posted at the gate of attention. A watchman hears the first footstep on the gravel, long before the visitor is in the room. A watchman is not suspicious of life. He is faithful to his charge. What is the charge? To notice the first moment your peace becomes dependent upon a condition. To notice the first must that rises with a threat behind it. To notice the first impulse to prove, to manage, to announce, to secure by pressure what was freely given by grace. To notice and to return within before the drift becomes a journey. You can recognize the drift by its speed. It is always in a hurry. It says, "Do it now or lose it." Spirit does not speak that way. Spirit is present reality, not a bargain expiring at midnight. You can recognize it by its tone. It tightens, it argues. It wants witnesses. Spirit witnesses to itself and needs no applause. You can recognize it by its object. It wants you to manage persons and events. Spirit asks only that you abide and let the fruit appear in due season. The watchman consciousness learns these signatures the way a shepherd knows the sound of his flock, and because he knows them, he can smile when the salesman comes, close the door gently, and turn back to the inner room. And do not be afraid of this word, vigilance. It is not a strain. It is love in attention. It is the respect you give to a marriage. Having found the one, you do not live in terror. You live alertly devoted, not giving your heart away to every passerby. So here, Having tasted union, you do not hand the scepter back to newspapers, to medical verdicts, to market voltages, to the verdict of a relative's face. You read, you visit, you calculate, you converse, but always as one who has a government within and will not sell it for a moment's relief or a moment's triumph. Let this be settled in us with moral seriousness. Freedom is hard to win. It is much harder to retain. That is not to discourage you. It is to dignify the work. Do not call yesterday's slip a failure. Call it an education in disguise. You are being trained to detect the dressed-up temptation and to love the presence more than the comfort of being right, more than the thrill of being a little master of outcomes. In a moment, we will look at the model that explains all of this so simply that even a child can see it, the branch and the vine, and you will understand why willpower cannot hold what only union sustains. For now, plant this post at the gate of today. I will live with a watchman at attention. I will catch the first drift. I will return before the branch life withers, and because grace does not come and go when I return, I will find it waiting as faithful as God. Now, let us look together at the demonstration so simple that you can see it with your eyes closed, and see it so plainly that it will explain every backslide you have ever known. If you can, for just a moment, visualize a tree, not a little potted thing on a windowsill, but a tree standing in the earth, its trunk rising, its branches extending, its leaves moving gently, and this is the secret, the great unseen part of it drinking and drawing beneath the surface, roots threading into the deep places, into moisture, into minerals, into the dark pharmacy of the earth, where the invisible becomes visible as bark and leaf and fruit. Now, hold your attention not on the roots and not on the trunk, but on one branch. See it. See that it has no pump of its own, no tank, no storehouse. It is not a factory, it is a conduit. Whatever life appears there, color in the leaf, sweetness in the fruit, shade for the bird, is the result of a life that began elsewhere and is passing through. The branch can wave, the branch can tremble, the branch can stretch further into the light, but it cannot originate the sap. It can only receive it, abide in it, and exhibit it. And now take a knife to that branch in your mind. Do not be cruel, just sever it neatly from the trunk, lay it on the ground, look at it. For 1 minute, 2 minutes it appears the same. The leaf still has some gloss. The twig is still supple. But in an hour, in a day, in a sun, something inevitable begins. Not punishment, not a curse. Inevitability. Without fresh inflow, the moisture already in it is spent. The greenness goes, the life becomes memory, the form withers. Notice it did not become sinful. It became dry. It did not become evil. It became less. No amount of exhortation addressed to that branch, "Be green, bear fruit," will avail. It has no access to its source. The root system did not become angry with it. The trunk did not censure it. The branch simply cannot live on its own. Now we translate. The Master gave this to us. I am the vine. Ye are the branches. The Father, if you wish to carry the picture through, is the root and the soil and the hidden depths from which all life comes. And what of you? Humanly, you appear as a branch, a form, an identity, an instrument through which life may show forth as wisdom, as love, as intelligence, as health, as supply, as companionship, as right activity. Where then is the point of union? When you say I inside yourself, silently we will do this more in a moment. When you say I and know it as the center that looks through your eyes, hears through your ears, loves through your heart, that I is the joint, the living place of contact. That is where the sap of the infinite enters the appearance called you. That is the place of union. That is the vine entering the branch. What then is severance? Not atheism. Not standing in the street shouting against God. Not even neglect of certain pious acts. Severance is to live as though supply were in a bank, as though safety were in a person, as though health were in a chemical, as though guidance were in a pole, as though peace were in a circumstance. Severance is to take your cues, your approvals, your warnings from appearances, and to try, with good intentions, to arrange them for your good. It is to act as if the branch were a factory with a pump and a plan and a deadline. It is respectable. It is busy. It is often admired. It withers. How does it wither? Again, not with horns and smoke. It withers by fatigue, the sense of carrying life on your shoulders. It withers by fear, the feeling that today's good must be protected by tomorrow's worry. It withers by conflict, the attempt to get your way, because you have no assurance that the way of God is moving. It withers by lack, not always of dollars, but of that flowing sense that what is needed is appearing in due season. The withering is not a moral verdict. It is a symptom. It is the simple outcome of forgetting the one fact upon which all spiritual life depends. The branch is not the source. Therefore, I must say this to you with gentleness and with clarity. You do not retain freedom by willpower. You retain it by abiding. You do not hold your peace by tightening your jaw. You hold it by returning again and again to the place where life enters you, to conscious union. If you will examine every backslide you have known, you will find this little hinge upon which the door turned. You went from abiding to managing, from resting to arranging, from listening to insisting. The result was as certain as the branch laid on the ground in the sun. It is not personal failure. It is disconnection as experience. It is the appearance of being cut off, and it produces, inevitably, the sensations of being cut off. Now, do not be discouraged by this inevitability. Let it free you. If the essence of withering is separation, then the essence of renewal is connection. And if the connection is not mechanical but conscious, then the whole way of living that retains freedom can be put in a single word: remembrance. Not mechanical repetition, not a schedule you whip yourself with. Remembrance. Consciously recognizing wherever you are that the life, the wisdom, the love that will appear today do not originate in you as a person. They pass through you. They pour through this I that is one with God. Your fidelity is to that union. Let us make it practical. You wake with a little tightness. Old habit. You do not start fighting the tightness. You do not pick up the knife and start carving idols of reassurance out there. You turn within and remember, I and the Father are one. Not as a sentence to make conditions behave, but as a fact to which you give your loyalty. In that remembrance, the sap flows. Thoughts rise you did not invent. Courage appears you did not store last night. A phone call comes, or a quiet no comes, or a clear yes comes. Action forms, but it is action under government. That is fruit. That is demonstration. That is the vine fruiting through the branch. Or you sit with the books, and a red number looks at you like a little judge. Do not bow to it. Do not despise it either. Remember, the function called supply is the infinite showing itself as right activity, order, opportunity, wisdom. If you abide, the steps you take next will be steps you can rest in. They will carry grace in them. You will call the person. You will delay the purchase. You will accept the unexpected income that has been hovering. You will see what is to be done because the seeing is given. The difference is not in the arithmetic. The difference is in the government. One is the branch frantic to pump. The other is the branch receiving the sap. And the fruit appears as form because the life is within it. Or in your body, sensation argues. You keep your appointment. You take whatever steps love and intelligence indicate, but you refuse, lovingly, to give the scepter to sensations or to their reports. You remember, you abide, and in that abiding you find yourself guided to a practitioner, guided to a rest, guided to a change of habit, You find yourself relieved, not because you bullied matter with thought, but because you stood in your place on the vine and let life do what life does. Renew, restore, balance, govern. I want you to notice again the inevitability of it. This is not a doctrine to believe. This is a demonstration to trust. Severance produces withering, union produces fruit. If, then, there has been a backslide in your experience, do not go into biography and not into blame. Go to the joint. Go to the place of contact. Go to the I within, and remember where government resides. The vine has not rejected you. The root is still the root. The trunk is still the trunk. Only your attention stood up and walked out for a little while, and when it did, the experience of withering announced itself. You can return in an instant. You can return in a line at the market, in a corridor at the clinic, in a traffic light's red. You can return before anything outward changes, and this is the comfort. The moment you return, the life that never left appears again as peace, as guidance, as sufficiency. Oh, I wish I could place this in your hand the way you place a coin, but I can only ask you to see the tree, to see the branch, to see the obvious, and then to accept that the spiritual life is that obvious. We do not bear fruit by trying to be good grapes. We bear fruit by abiding in the vine. How long? As long as you wish to live. How? Not by strain, not by vigil born of fear, but by a practiced remembrance that becomes as natural as breathing. In a moment we will take this from picture to practice. For now, make this vow not to me, not to any movement, not to any rule book, but to the life within you. I will not attempt to be my own vine. I will abide. And because God is faithful, fruit will follow as surely as morning follows night. Now we take the picture to practice, not later. Now, a quiet experiment. Just silently within yourself, no show, no posture. Think of that word, I. Do not say it out loud. Do not decorate it with adjectives. Just declare it within yourself. I, and again, gently, I. For some, this will be as natural as recognizing your own face in a mirror. For others, it will feel like a sound falling into a deep well, and you will wait a moment for the echo. For still others, it may feel blank at first, like tapping on a door that does not yet open. Do not judge any of it. The door is there. We are only learning where the knob is. Now, I must tell you what we are addressing, because language is a tricky thing. We are not calling the personal I, the one with a resume and a reputation, the I that remembers last week's failure or next week's appointment, not that I. The I we are declaring is the witness of that I. It is the awareness that was present before you put on a name this morning, and that will be present when you lay the name on the nightstand tonight. It is the I that does not age with the body's stories or rise and fall with its moods. It is the joint. It is the living point at which the vine enters the branch. When you say I in that way, quietly, sincerely, you are laying your hand on the source, not as a theory, but as contact. So once more, silently within yourself, I, and let the mind grow still enough to notice something you might otherwise pass by. Notice that you are not trying to believe anything. You are noticing that you are. And within that isness is a hush. It is not a blank. It is a living quiet. If thoughts want to parade, let them pass in front of the house. You stay home. You do not go out and join the parade. Feel for that unmoving center, that sense of being which, whether happy or sad, old or young, rich or poor, simply is. That is where union lives, not in the thought about God, not in the picture of God, in the I that God is being in you. Now this is more than a sweet moment. This is a test you can carry into every common hour. When fear arises, don't argue first. Don't edit headlines first. Don't rush to win the case with reasoning. Return first. Return to I before you return to the world. If you are in the waiting room and a report may be given, acknowledge the turning urge to brace yourself with scenarios, and before you serve the mind its menu, lay your hand upon the inner knob. 1. Wait a breath. 2. If you can. Do not try to fix anything, just remember. In that remembrance, you will find a stillness that is not manufactured. It is presence. Out of that, you will still listen, you will still decide, you will still act. But you will do it as a branch under government, and your steps will carry something of that quiet in them. Or you stand over the ledger and red numbers dance. The reflex is to reach for levers, to tighten, to hustle. Pause. Even with the book open, even with the phone in your hand, turn within and whisper without words. You are not bargaining with the universe for a deposit by Friday. You are touching the place where supply is not an amount, but a life that appears as ideas, as right timing, as invitations, as ordered cancellations, as new vision. Supply is fruit, not wages. You abide, the sap flows, the fruit appears, not because you used a trick word, but because you remembered the source and so stopped trying to be one. Now, a caution here, and please receive it with love. Repeating the word I is not the power. The word is a doorway, a doorknob. You can sit in the hall and polish the knob all day and never enter the room. The power is the presence you meet when you pass through. Many have worn out prayer rugs with syllables and gone on empty because they never shifted the seat of authority from the world of appearances to the I that witnesses them. If you find yourself counting repetitions, bracing, hurrying, you may be polishing the knob. Smile, stop, open, say I once, and then listen. Listen for the witness, not for a sound. Listen for the gentle release, the slackening of the inner fist, the simple okayness that requires no argument. That is the sign you have entered. And another caution, because after awakening, temptation comes in religious garments. Do not use this as a technique to get things. You will spoil its wine. You will turn communion into commerce. The branch that abides does not stare at the end of itself to measure how large the grape is getting. It receives. It trusts the root. It fulfills its nature by staying open. So do not bargain. If I declare I enough times, then surely the check will come. The tumor will disappear. The child will call. You have left the room. You have accepted the serpent's price list. Beloved, the grace of God is not a wage due to your utterances. It is the life of God revealing itself as your experience. It appears as harmony, as correction, as guidance, as what is needed when it is needed. It does not need your schedule, it needs your consent. Let us make this practical in the small ways that decide a day. Before you open the news, I. Before you answer the email that stings, I. Before you put the key in the ignition, I. Before you take the pill or decline it, I. Before you sign the contract, I. Not as superstition, as government. You are simply acknowledging who runs this household, and it is not the nervous personality called me. It is the living presence called I that is one with the Father. From that place, answer the email, sign or do not sign, take or decline. You will find that your tone changes, the pressure softens, the sense of being carried returns, and strangely, outcomes come clothed in a wisdom you could not have planned. What if you feel nothing? What if the word seems to fall flat? Do not condemn yourself. Do not call yourself unspiritual and begin a biography of why this is so. Remember the watchman. Catch the drift early and return gently, without scolding. Fidelity is the fruit of many small, faithful returns. The earth does not open with fireworks every time the root drinks, yet the tree lives steadily, quietly, gloriously. So, with you, trust the quiet, trust the unseen flow. Some days you will feel warmth fill the chest, tears loosen without reason, guidance flash like a bird across the mind. Other days you will feel nothing but the refusal to leave home. Both are fidelity. Both keep you on the vine. If you want a simple sentence to carry with you, let it be this: I return to I before I return to the world. That is all. In that act, you are choosing your government. In that act, you are placing your ear where the orders are given. In that act, you are letting the infinite show itself as wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities, poured, not produced, received, not wrestled. Give yourself to this for a week. Truly give yourself, and you will find that retention begins not as a project, but as a rhythm. The inner union becomes familiar. The drift becomes obvious. The return becomes immediate. And the fruit, oh yes, the fruit, appears as living proof without your announcing it. So once more, before we move on, just silently within yourself, declare it gently, reverently, I. Let it open from a word into a presence. Rest there a moment. Then, when we rise to meet the world, we will carry that rest out with us and do our work as branches, not as little vines, loved, governed, supplied by the one who has always lived at the center of that simple I. Now we must face a temptation that visits only those who have tasted something real, and it does not come in rags. It comes dressed for church. For some, it slips in as a quiet sense of being a little farther along than one's neighbor, gentle superiority wearing a halo, the smile that says, poor dears, they do not yet know. For others, it takes the form of a compulsion to correct, to set everyone straight at the dinner table, in the office, in the study group, to patrol the language and scrub it clean of error. For still others, it appears as the hunger to be seen as advanced, to collect little spiritual badges, the right vocabulary, the rare book, the special posture, the dropping of names and lineages, the photographs beside teachers, the insistence on being asked. It is the ego's last refuge, and it is this, to borrow spiritual light and call it personal attainment. Now, why is this so dangerous? Because it is respectable. It sounds holy. It quotes scripture. It attends meetings. It publishes pamphlets. It may even have testimonies. But it is the branch painting itself green and calling the paint sap. It is the cleverest form of separation because it keeps the lips full of God words, while the heart quietly moves the center of authority back to the person. The proof? Anxiety to be recognized, hurt when overlooked, irritation when contradicted, triumph when a point is scored. And, do you see, at the very moment the mouth is speaking of the vine, the branch is trying to be the vine. Another mask is the craving for demonstration as self-display. Now, demonstration is essential. Without it, we are a philosophy of words, and no one is helped. But notice the turn. When results are sought to validate me, to crown me, to vindicate my worth against some old accusation within, we have left the sanctuary and built a little stage. Then the prayer becomes a performance, the healing an advertisement, the supply a trophy. And you can feel the strain of it, the rush to tell it, the subtle comparisons, the "did you hear what happened under my treatment?" That is not fruit in the vineyard. That is fruit arranged in a shop window. It withers overnight. There is still another turn, and this one has created more sorrow than atheism. It is the slide into rigidity, rules, penalties, superstition, what I have called churchianity. A living truth is experienced. It is fresh. It is free. It is grace. Then, to preserve it, we build a fence. We write a rule. We threaten a penalty. We discover techniques and guard them like patents. We begin to imagine that certain syllables, certain diets, certain postures, certain hours, certain donations carry virtue in themselves. We carve out little orthodoxies and measure one another by them. And before long, love has cooled, joy has thinned, laughter has left, and we have exchanged the wine of inner communion for the label on the bottle. Paul saw this and cried, circumcision, uncircumcision, it availeth nothing. I would add in our language, outer baptism, outer communion, outer membership, they availeth nothing. The inner circumcision, the inner baptism, the inner communion, this is the thing. Do you see how subtle the change is? The outward form is kept, the inner life is lost. Now, how shall you recognize the antidote? The countermark of genuine realization is not fierceness, but gentleness. It makes one simpler, not more complex, quieter, not more talkative, less anxious to persuade and more willing to listen, slower to correct and quicker to bless. You will find in a soul truly touched by God a certain ease with not being noticed, a freedom from being right, a willingness to say, I do not know. Let us wait upon the Spirit. The voice lowers, the sentences shorten, the eyes soften, the posture relaxes. There is a spaciousness about them, and in that spaciousness you feel the presence itself. They do not need to be the source because they have found the source. They can afford to be transparent. And that brings us to holiness redefined. Holiness is not rarity of vocabulary or oddness of habit. Holiness is transparency, letting divine qualities flow through without grabbing them for a resume. Wisdom, love, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities, pouring through this eye that is one with the Father and passing into the world as what is needed. Guidance here, comfort there, correction where correction will heal and not humiliate. If there is any sentence that keeps one safe, it is the Master's own. I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. That is not pious modesty, that is metaphysical accuracy. The branch does not originate the sap, it exhibits it. Therefore it cannot boast, it can only be grateful. Now, to keep this close to the ground, let us bring it to the moment you notice the pull. You feel the urge to correct someone publicly. Do nothing outward for a breath. Turn within. Ask, who is eager? Who is offended? Is it the witness I, or is it the personality asking to be stroked? If it is the personality, smile at it as you might smile at a child reaching for a shiny thing, and return to I. If correction is truly love, it will arise without that heat, without that taste of victory. It will be offered like bread, and if it is refused, you will feel no need to press it. Remember, blessings cannot be inflicted. You cannot argue a rose into bloom. You can only keep the plant in the light. Or you feel an itch to report a result. Turn within and ask, for whom am I telling this? What am I seeking to get by telling it? If the answer is recognition, absolution, applause, you know what to do. Return, rest, and if you tell it at all, let it be to make God visible, not to make yourself important. You will discover that the fewer trumpets you blow, the stronger the fragrance of the fruit. People will come not because you beckoned with glitter, but because they were fed. And if you find yourself drawn to make rules for others, how often to meditate, what to eat, what not to read, whom to marry, remember that our way has no memberships, and no one can join it. The only bond in this work is a spiritual bond. The moment you need an outer rule to keep a soul behaved, you have admitted you do not trust the inner government. Play no Pharaoh. We are to lead one another to the inner throne, not to seat ourselves upon it. If someone asks for counsel, offer what love gives you. Then release them to God. Demand no vows. Threaten no penalties. Trade no superstition. If they are to be kept, they will be kept by the joy of the presence, not by your whip. Now, beloved, if as I speak you find some of these shadows in yourself, do not condemn yourself. This is not a tribunal, it is a light. The ego is subtle, and its last trick is to borrow your discovery of God and use it as a mirror. Catch the drift early, return gently, refuse to scold, abide, and you will notice something beautiful. The need to be special grows thin. The sweetness of being nobody in particular grows rich. The opinions quiet. The compulsion to decorate yourself with holiness fails. And in the hush, the government of God resumes, and the fruit appears, unadvertised, unforced, unmistakable. So let us keep ourselves as clear glass. Let the sun do the shining. Hide yourself in the vine, and let the sap speak. That way, when wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities appear, we won't have to manage them or market them. We will simply watch them do what they always do when unhindered. Bless, heal, guide, correct, and fill the day with grace. And nobody will need to know who did it, least of all you, because you will know the truth. I do nothing of myself. The Father within doeth the works. And now, because we have said, let the sun do the shining and the sap speak, we must say something plain about the way this work lives on earth. For some, what I am about to say will come as relief, a loosening of some hidden fear that you are going to be captured by an institution. For others, it will be a disappointment, because the human mind likes a fence and a roster and a title. For still others, it will be a sober awakening, because it leaves you with a holy responsibility that no committee can carry for you. This work is not organized. There are no memberships and no one can join it. There is no badge. There is no role to sign. There are no dues, and therefore there are no penalties. There is no outer bond. The only way anyone is ever united with this message is spiritually, by inner recognition, by that hush within when truth is heard, by the fruit that follows. And the reason is this. The moment you build a structure to lean on, you move the center of authority back outside, and you have quietly rebuilt the very bondage from which you were delivered. You look to a board, a rule book, a hierarchy, something to keep you safe, and safety becomes something done to you instead of something revealed in you. That is not the vine life. That is a trellis without a root. Now, do you see the protection hidden in this freedom? No one can keep you in this way by fear, and no one can put you out by disapproval. You cannot be advanced by flattery nor demoted by gossip. You will never be able to say, I must hold to this because they will be angry if I don't. There is no they. Therefore, hear this soberly. If you are to be kept, it will be by your own fidelity to inner union. You must hold fast without human obligation. You must measure everything, my words, your thoughts, any book, any teacher, within yourself, by demonstrable truth in consciousness. That is, does it lead you into the felt presence, into quiet government, into the practical fruit of harmony, guidance, correction, healing, or does it stir up excitement, fear, opinion, and then leave you tired? If the latter, set it aside. If the former, live with it until it becomes bone of your bone. How shall you measure? Not by agreement with your old opinions, not by the cleverness of the phrasing, not by the crowd around it. You measure by demonstration. You take it into the secret place. You sit with I. You let the mind grow still. You refuse to chase the parade of thoughts. And then you notice, does peace increase? Do you sense governance returning? In the days that follow, does wisdom appear as right words and right silences? Do situations that once stuck begin to loosen? Does love, unforced, find its way into your responses? This is how you know. Otherwise you have only doctrine, and doctrine without demonstration is just another weight to carry. Because there is no outer bond, there must be inner fidelity. And here is where many stumble after their first awakening. Having touched something real, they go out shopping again. A little of this technique, a dash of that ritual, a sprinkle of that sacred object, just in case. Beloved, a house divided against itself cannot stand. When you have found the inner way, when you know where the I is and have tasted union, give up all others and cling to this one as you do in marriage. Not because other ways are wicked, but because divided allegiance is separation. The branch cannot drink from two roots at once. The way is straight and narrow, not out of cruelty, but out of metaphysical fact. Life cannot flow through a channel that keeps opening and closing with every new advertisement. Do not confuse this fidelity with fanaticism. Holding fast does not make you odd or hard. It does not require you to talk spirituality at breakfast or to scold your neighbor for their remedies. Holding fast means you live your life, go to work, pay your bills, wash your dishes, laugh with your children, care for your parents, serve in your community, while staying inwardly married to I. You become easier to be with, not harder. You become more normal, not less. You are kinder, not stricter. You stop policing everyone else's path because you have your hands full returning quietly and faithfully to the source that governs you. And because there is no organization to check on you, you check on yourself, not with a whip, but with a watchman. You notice early when the drift begins, the old excitement for techniques, the fear that whispers, what if this isn't enough? Better add a charm, a chant, a contract. You smile at it, you recognize the voice, you return. You remember, blessings cannot be inflicted, wisdom cannot be bought. Supply is sap, not salary. You sit a moment in I, just that, until the inner hand that was reaching for a crutch relaxes and the presence resumes its throne. This freedom also removes a favorite excuse. Without an outer bond, you cannot say, my group believes, and hide behind it. You cannot say, my teacher said, and therefore escape responsibility for how you live. You must know within. You must bear witness to what the Spirit has told you in the night seasons, and yet see the mercy in this, because you are not held by human obligation. You are free to grow. If light shows you that you have misunderstood a point, you can lay it down without embarrassment. No counsel will censure you. The only correction is the gentle nudge of the presence and the fruit that follows. If you want a simple picture for holding fast, imagine a wedding ring you wear on the inside of your heart. You do not flash it at parties, you touch it in the dark. When fear comes to court you, promising security in exchange for your fidelity, you lay your finger there and answer without words. When glitter comes, offering power and applause, you lay your finger there. When fatigue comes, suggesting shortcuts, you lay your finger there. And out of that inward faithfulness, life arranges itself. Wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities, moving through the branch not because the branch has mastered the marketplace of methods, but because it has remained where life flows. So let us be grateful that there is nothing to join and no one to please. Let us be grateful that there is only a spiritual bond, and that it is woven not by signatures, but by shared silence and shared fruit. This places the dignity and, yes, the weight of your freedom squarely where it belongs, within. Take it up gladly, hold fast gently, walk out your ordinary day under extraordinary government, and if you need a rule, let it be this one. I keep my allegiance where my life is, and my life is in God. Now comes a word that will both comfort and, gently remove an old excuse. Blessings cannot be inflicted. For some of you, this will ring like a bell you have always known. Of course, God does not force himself upon his own image. For others, it will sting a little, because you have wished that something or someone out here might do it to you, while you remain safely guarded inside. For still others, it will come as release because it restores to you the dignity of being a conscious participant in your own awakening. The Spirit does not shove, it invites. It does not seize, it asks for your yes. If you will look at the gospel pattern, you will see this again and again. They came to him, they asked. They stretched forth a hand, they touched the hem. Do you believe that I am able to do this? Yea, Lord. According to your faith be it unto you. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Take up thy bed and walk. Do you see the rhythm? approach, consent, receive. Even when grace met them through a person, it was not the person imposing a benefit. It was the presence evoking receptivity. The miracle was not in the touch alone, but in the opening the touch symbolized. The Master did not drag the reluctant to wholeness. He called forth the yes that lets God be God in us. Therefore, take this into your own life as law. You cannot benefit from truth by proximity. You cannot benefit by listening only, nor by agreeing with the words while withholding yourself from the presence the words announce. You may fill a library with correct doctrine and remain unfed if you will not eat. You may sit in the same room with realized souls and remain unwatered if you will not drink. You may stand a branch right next to a vine, paint it the same color, admire its shape, and still no sap will flow unless union is actual. Conscious union is the path of grace into experience. No idea about God, however accurate, can substitute for the act of consenting to be God-governed. Here is where many relapse after a first illumination. In the glow of that new light, they suppose that light will do the rest while they remain passive spectators. They attend meetings, play recordings, read books, good things, necessary supports at times. But inwardly, they keep a little door bolted. They wait for the teacher to say something that will pry it open. They hire a practitioner as if ordering a service. Do it to me by Thursday. Beloved, a practitioner cannot force the gate. No teacher can trespass upon holy ground. At their best, they stand in the realization of God as the only law, and in that atmosphere your defenses soften and your own yes becomes easier. But the yes is still yours. Without it, you sit in the sunlight with the shutters drawn and blame the sun for not entering. So what is this yes? It is not a straining, not a giddy vow to be good, not a bargain for specific outcomes. It is a quiet willingness, a consent of being. Within yourself, no show, no witnesses. You turn to I and you say, Father, here I am. You yield the government of the case. Be thou the law of this mind, this body, this home, this business. You release your grip on how, when, and through whom grace must appear. You let go the cherished grievance that keeps you fed on old pain. You surrender the tiny crown that makes you the arbiter of results. And then you rest, not in indifference, but in trust. In that posture, the branch is uninhibited. The sap has a free course. Wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities move without obstruction and appear outwardly as right guidance, right timing, quiet correction, unexpected openings, closed doors that would have harmed you, endurance that feels like peace. You did not manufacture any of it. You consented, and the government of God enacted its own nature. Give this a practical hour. You are in the waiting room, and fear is rehearsing a speech. Before you consult 5 authorities on your phone, close your eyes, not necessarily physically but within, and say, yes, govern me, be the law here. Do not specify the outcome. Consent to the presence. Or a ledger stares at you and tells a tale of lack. Before you clutch or hustle, say, yes, be the source appearing as ideas, as timing, as cancellation, as opportunity. I consent to be led, to be checked, to be corrected. Or a quarrel heats and the old sentences queue up on your tongue. Say within, yes, be the word and the silence. If a practitioner is helping you, add your yes to their realization. Do not hang upon them as a crutch while your heart remains clenched. 2 in agreement is power, not because 2 personalities are aligning, but because 2 consciousnesses are consenting to the one presence as law. Let me also tell you what this is not, because subtlety lurks here. This yes is not passivity. You will still act. You will call the doctor or not, sign or not, speak or keep silence, as wisdom directs. But the action will not be a panic thrust from a frightened self. It will be an obedience from a governed self. And this yes is not heroism. You need not manufacture a giant feeling. Sometimes your yes will feel like a sigh. Sometimes it will be barely more than the refusal to slam the door shut. That is enough. Grace is not measuring the decibel level of your surrender. It is honoring the simple alignment of your will with its will. Now, retention. Why is it that some taste this and keep it, while others taste and then find it slips through their fingers? The reason is habit. When receptivity becomes occasional, reserved for emergencies and high holy days, the mind rehearses dependence on externals in between. The branch keeps attaching and detaching. The sap can bless, yes, but the life feels start and stop, and discouragement grows. When receptivity becomes habitual, small yeses in little hours, the realized state stops being an event and becomes a climate. You wake with it. You work in it. You answer emails in it. You rest in it. You notice drift early because the contrast is clear, and your return is gentle because the path is well worn. This is how freedom is retained, not by gripping, but by consenting again and again until consenting is the way you breathe. So hear this with love and perhaps a touch of urgency. Nobody can open you but you. Not I, not any book, not any group, not any ritual. We may point, we may stand in the light and let it reflect. We may pray with you, but the doorknob is on the inside. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. The knocking is constant, the presence is ever present, but the opening, that little turn of willingness, that inner yes, must be yours. And because the mercy of God is fathomless, if you have withheld it until now, no penalty has accrued, that grace cannot dissolve in a moment. Even now, where you are, you can say within yourself, yes, here I am. Do not strain, do not bargain, do not promise, just yield. Then go on with your day. Wash the dishes under government, drive under government, answer the phone under government. If you forget, remember sooner. If you hesitate, smile and consent again. And you will find, softly, without trumpets, that what you long believed about grace becomes experience, steady, quiet, demonstrable, because you are living the only method God has ever honored. Conscious union received, not forced, invited, not inflicted, habitual, not occasional. The vine living its life through the branch that will not shut the gate. Now that we have said yes, now that we have learned to say it again and again in the small hours, a fair question rises. How shall we know that we are retaining freedom and not merely talking about it? For some of you, this has been the sticking point, a great deal of beauty in the words, a genuine feeling in the meetings, and yet you go home and face the same temper, the same fear, the same shortage, and you wonder, has anything really changed? For others, there has been a tendency to collect doctrines, very accurate ones, and yet hesitate to see whether they will stand the weather. For still others, there is a noble doubt that says, prove it to me in a way that I can live, or do not ask me to carry it. All three are welcomed here, because the Master gave us a simple law, and it is this: by their fruits ye shall know them. Demonstration is not argument. It is not quotations stacked cleverly. It is not the thrill that sweeps a room and leaves no trace in the morning. Demonstration is the practical fruit of inner union in daily living. It is peace that persists when the wind rises, not because you have numbed yourself, but because another has taken the helm. It is guidance that operates, actual ideas, an inner yes and no that appear on time without drama. It is harmony that shows up as cooperation where there was friction, as forgiveness where there was a ledger, as order in a corner of the house that has been a private chaos for years. It is healing that proves principle, sometimes sudden, sometimes gradual, but always as the natural outflow of being God-governed rather than fear-governed. It is supply that appears as ideas, timing, cancellations, opportunities, corrections, without the haste that belongs to anxiety and without the pride that belongs to self-display. When you see these quietly, naturally, without fanfare, you are seeing demonstration. You are seeing the vine life showing itself in the branch. Now let me balance this with a needed caution. Do not demand fireworks as your daily bread. Miracles are not stage tricks to keep the ego entertained. There will be seasons of striking outward change, the lump that goes, the letter that arrives at the last hour, the reconciliation that no human psychology could have arranged. Be grateful for them. Report them when love asks for witness, but do not make them your diet. If you need a wonder every Tuesday to assure you that God is on the throne, you have placed God on probation. The usual fruit of retained freedom is steadiness. It is that peace that passeth understanding, which means it does not consult appearances for permission to exist. It is the reduction of inner argument. It is a lightness in the hands as you work. It is a quiet humor about what once frightened you. It is kindness where you were once sharp. This is demonstration, and without it, your doctrine is only an ornament. How then shall you measure your way? Not by how much you agree with me, not by the number of verses you can quote. Measure it within yourself by this. After your study, your meditation, your practice, are you less afraid or more? Has dependence shifted from a person, a rule, a technique, to the presence? Or have you become more dependent on the one who speaks, the book that charms, the meeting that soothes? Are you becoming gentler or harder? Has self-righteousness increased? We alone know. Or decreased into a willingness to be taught by life? Do you find a spontaneous readiness to bless, to listen, to wait upon inner guidance, or do you feel an itch to police the world? If any path increases fear, dependence on externals, or the sense of superiority, however beautiful the words, it is not the way. If a teaching leaves you raw with anxiety, unless you keep up with its prescriptions, it is not the way. The way is narrow, yes, but it is free of compulsion because governance is within. Now take this measure right now, quietly, not as a performance, just silently within yourself. Think of that word, I. Declare it within yourself, I. Do not rush to feel something. Let the declaration turn your attention to its source. Where do you sense that I lives? Not in the head that is measuring, not in the heart that is yearning, but deeper than either. The witness, the life, the presence that says, I, without effort. Rest there a breath. Notice, does a certain ease present itself? Does the room grow a shade wider inside you? That is not suggestion. That is the faint feel of government resuming. Take this into a moment of action. You are about to send a difficult letter. Pause, turn to I, and let the words come under government. You are about to pick up the phone. Pause, consent, and then proceed. In the wake of these small obediences, watch for fruit. It will show itself, not all at once, not always dramatically, but reliably, like dawn in a faithful climate. And what of failure? What of the morning when you rise and the peace is gone, the quarrel returns, the old appetite knocks, the body aches, the money threatens? Do not condemn yourself. Use failure as an alarm, not as a verdict. The alarm says only this: you have drifted, you have returned to branch life, by which I mean you have begun to live as if the branch were its own source. Good. You have heard the bell. Now return to union. Catch it early, return gently, refuse to scold. Sit for a moment and say I, and let the government reassume its place. If amends are needed, make them. If a call to the doctor is wisdom, make it under government without fear. If you must change a plan, change it under government without drama. In a true orchard, a branch bruised in the night does not sit in shame. It receives the same sap in the morning, and life sets about its quiet repair. Let me say a word about testimony, because here much harm and much good can be done. When love leads, Tell what God has done, not to magnify yourself, not to advertise a method, but to make God visible. If telling it increases hunger for the presence in those who hear, good. If it increases hunger for you, be silent. Remember, demonstration over doctrine means the proof lies not in how excited a room becomes, but in the changes that persist when the room is empty. A man once told me at length of healings under his treatment, and then, in the car park, cursed a stranger with ferocity for taking his space. That is not a condemnation, it is a measure. The fruit did not yet reach the roots of temperament. Better a smaller outer story with a deeper inner transformation than great headlines that leave the household unchanged. And remember, patience. The fig does not ripen the day you plant. Some fruits are quick, some take a season. You will find areas of your life where harmony appears almost as soon as you consent. You will find other areas, old griefs, old habits, where consent must be practiced like breathing for a time before the change breaks the surface. Do not become superstitious. Do not add techniques out of panic. Hold fast where life is and let the law of the vine prove itself. Wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities. These are not toys for a weekend. They are the very nature of the life that flows. Give them room. Let them enter speech, schedule, appetite, friendship, finance, without hurry and without show. If you will keep this standard, demonstration over doctrine, you will be saved from two equal errors, boasting when a result appears and despairing when one tarries. In the first case, you will remember, I can of mine own self do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the works. In the second, you will take it as a cue to return, not as a reason to quit. Either way, you remain married to the source, and in that marriage, fruit becomes inevitable. We are not selling you promises. We are reminding you of law. Live from within, and life will validate itself. And if we had a clock on the wall, I suspect it would be scolding me for, oh, where did the time go? But until it does, let this settle into you. You need not argue this truth. Live it. Let the day carry the testimony. By your peace, by your guidance, by your harmony, by your healing, quiet, steady, unadvertised, the world will read your doctrine without ever seeing your notes. For some, what I am about to say will be a fresh word, a way of living that you have intuited but never named. For others, it will be a clarifying of what you already practice when you are at your best. For still others, it will be a rescue from that old habit of scolding yourselves for not being spiritual enough. The word is watchman, not a policeman, not a critic, not a nervous sentinel pacing the wall at midnight. The watchman I speak of is awareness stationed at the gate of thought, observing without panic, correcting without violence, returning without delay to the government of God. Now, you cannot hire this watchman from the outside. There is no badge to pin on. This watchman is simply your consent to be aware, to notice where your attention is, and to return it early, gently to I. It is not an office. It is a posture. Be sober, be vigilant, the apostle said. Sober meaning clear, simple, unexcited. Vigilant meaning awake without strain. When the watchman stands at the gate, the day does not become a drill sergeant's parade. It becomes a well-tended garden. Here is the watchman's daily rule, and if you will allow it, make it your rhythm until it breathes you. First, notice. Notice the first fear, the first tightness, the first hurry that has in it that faint metallic taste of self-reliance. It may come as a headline that leaps at you, as a memory that pricks, as a tone in a colleague's voice, as an ache in the body, as a number on a ledger. Catch it in the bud. Do not wait until the bush is on fire and you are already shouting instructions at the universe. Early is mercy. Second, pause and return, just silently within yourself. Think of that word, I. Declare it within yourself, I. Let the thought fall back into its source. Say, if you wish, one sentence, be thou the law here, or I can of mine own self do nothing, or simply, Father, no theatrics, a turning. Third, rest until assurance is felt, not until fireworks go off, until a soft yes, a quiet easing, a lightness at the center appears. It may be a breath, it may be the smallest click of alignment. Wait for that and then proceed under government. That is all. The most dangerous moment in the day is not the loud crisis. It is the whisper that says, this time you must handle it yourself. It dresses itself up as responsibility. Be practical. Put your truth aside for an hour and take charge. It even puts on spiritual clothing. You've had enough meditation for one morning. Now get things done. That is the serpent in its respectable suit. Meet it early. Answer it with the truth, not in defiance, but in remembrance. I and the Father are one. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. And then prove your answer by pausing, one breath, two, and returning. If a phone call must be made, make it under government. If a plan must be changed, change it under government. If a doctor must be consulted, consult under government. The lie is not that you must act. The lie is that you must act alone. Now a caution, because the mind is clever. Do not let the watchman become a judge of your neighbor. Guard against self-righteous watchmanship. The watchman posted at your gate has no jurisdiction over your spouse's tone, your co-worker's beliefs, your neighbor's remedies, or your children's pace of learning. Watch and pray lest ye enter into temptation, said the Master. Not watch and diagnose others. Every moment you spend policing another's path, your own gate is unguarded, and fear slips in with a new disguise, superiority. Keep your post. Let your demonstration be the sermon your household reads, and be content to let God govern the rest. Because we are humanly trained to push and to prove. Some of you will say, but I failed. I noticed too late. I reacted. I sent the letter hot. I ate the thing I had no need of. I snapped at the child. Beloved, hear me. Do not condemn yourself. The watchman is not a whip. He is a bell. Use failure as the ringing of that bell and return. Now, not after a day of penance. Sit, say I, and let assurance arise again. If amends are called for, make them, not as self-punishment, but as the natural correction of a governed soul. In this way, even your mistakes become guardrails. They teach you the taste of drift so intimately that you catch it sooner next time, and sooner still the time after that, until the first quiver of fear is the signal, and the return is a reflex. Let me make this simple in the hours of a day. In the morning, before the news, before the phone, establish your post. A minute, 5, 10, no rule, but real. Say I inside yourself and consent to be God-governed. Do not ask for a day without events. Ask to be steady within them. At midday, when the tide of activity pulls, give it a breath. Return to I. Ask no questions of heaven. Simply yield. In the evening, lay the day down, not as a prosecutor, but as a witness. Where did you catch the drift early? Where did you miss it? Give thanks for both, the first as fruit, the second as instruction. Then sleep under government. You will wake to find the watchman already at his station. You will be tempted. The victory is not never being tempted. The victory is not consenting. Jesus was tempted. The stories are not there to decorate Sunday school. They tell you that the voice will come. Command these stones, cast thyself down. All these things will I give thee. The answers were simple, rooted, unemotional. It is written. You need not fight with devils. You need not shout affirmations at phantoms. You need only refuse the premise and return to the law. The vine lives, the branch receives. Wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities, the whole sap of life, flows without excitement when the connection is unbroken. Your watchman's only task is to keep that connection conscious. Let this then be your kindness to yourself and to those around you. Post the watchman, not as a tyrant, but as a friend. Catch the drift early, before temper, before panic, before pride. Return gently, without drama, without speeches, without bargaining. Do not condemn yourself ever, because condemnation is another drift, another way of trying to manage yourself apart from grace. And if you ask, how will I know it is working? You will see it as you have seen all true things in this work. Steadiness appearing where you were brittle, composure where you were raw, humor where you were tight. The same problem approached under a new government and therefore no longer the same problem. You will not become a statue. You will become a branch, alive, flexible, rooted, at peace. And if, somewhere in the day, you find yourself far gone, already in the argument, already in the hurry, stop there. The watchman is still at the gate, even if you forgot his name. Speak it, I. Let the remembrance be now. Life does not scold a branch for the wind it has weathered. It simply sends the sap, so receive. Return. Rest until assurance is felt. Then go on, governed, into whatever the next hour asks of you. In this way, freedom is not a mood you hope to keep. It is a fidelity you practice, quietly, faithfully, watchfully, until it becomes the way you live. And now, before we part, let me say plainly what I have said in a dozen ways tonight. You belong, not by signing a card, not by joining a roster, not by pledging allegiance to a name or a place or a personality. There are no memberships, and no one can join it. The only bond in this work is a spiritual bond, and it encircles the globe. At no time, if you will live from within, will you be outside the reach of prayerful consciousness. At noon or at 3 in the morning, in a city or on a country road, there is a living awareness, one presence, one life, one mind, in which we are all included. Do not look for a headquarters, there is none. Do not look for a rule book, there is only the law within. I and the Father are one. If you ever feel alone, it is only that the branch has looked away from the vine and tried to remember the orchard by itself. In the instant you return to I, you are at home with all who live by the same life. We have walked a path together. For some of you, it has been review with new light upon it. For others, it has been the first clear chart of something you half knew and could not name. For still others, it has been a rescue from the subtle discouragement that set in after your first illumination faded. Hear the arc and carry it as a compass. Freedom is won through conscious inner union with God, by making contact within, not by holding tighter to the world of appearances. Freedom is retained by fidelity, by consenting again and again to be God-governed instead of ego-governed, by refusing the respectable temptations that come dressed in spiritual language, by resting as branch and vine and letting the sap do what only the sap can do. Retention is not a clenched jaw. It is receptivity made habitual. It is the watchman posted kindly at the gate, catching the drift early, returning gently, refusing condemnation. It is the humility to let demonstration, not doctrine, be your witness. The courage to say yes to grace because blessings cannot be inflicted. The clarity to stand without outer props because this way has no memberships and no human obligation to hold you up. You are free, and therefore you are responsible to live your union. Now, because hearing is never enough, let us finish as we began, in practice, just silently within yourself. Think of that word I. Declare it within yourself, I. Do not make a sound of it. Make a door of it. Let attention fall back of thought, back of feeling, to the one that says I before thought speaks. Rest there a moment. Be still and know. We do not ask anything of God now. We let God be God. We yield this mind, this body, this household, this day to the government of the one presence. If a fear is knocking, do not argue. Let it stand outside while you remember the law. I am the vine, ye are the branches. Without me, nothing. With me, all that the vine is flows into the branch. Wisdom, knowledge, intelligence, virtues, powers, vitalities, immortalities, quietly, without struggle. Feel, if you can, the simple ease that arises when no one is required to be God except God. That little ease is the sign government has resumed. Carry this into tomorrow, which means carry it into the first small hour that asks for you. The bond that holds us is not the sound of my voice, not the warmth of this room. It is the shared willingness to live from within. In the kitchen, at the desk, on the road, in a ward, in a boardroom, live from within. Watch the drift. Return before the branch life withers. If you forget, remember sooner. If you remember late, do not scold. Return anyway. Let the day itself become your service, your meeting, your class. Let the way you answer the ordinary be the sermon nobody hears and everybody feels. And remember, because some of you worry about support, that you are not stepping into a vacuum. Though we are not organized, though there is no human bond to keep you faithful, there is a spiritual band around this globe. Men and women who, like you, are consenting to be God-governed. In the middle of your afternoon, a soul in another city is at prayer. In the middle of their night, your morning is kept. But even this is only a comfort. It is not your guarantee. Your safeguard is your own fidelity to inner union. Stand there and you are included in all that love is doing anywhere. Drift from there and you could be sitting in the front row of a great cathedral and feel entirely alone. Inclusion is spiritual. It is not conferred by chairs. It is conferred by conscious oneness. If I have one charge to give you, it is not to be comforted for an hour. It is to live from the vine. Give up all others and cling to this one. Let this be your marriage vow, renewed in the quiet of each morning. I will live today from within. I will let God govern. I will catch the drift early. I will return gently. I will not condemn myself. And I will know my doctrine by my fruit. If you will do this, you will find that the headlines frighten you less, that the appointments proceed with more order, that the old appetite loosens, that humor returns, that love arises where you had only effort. None of this proves that you have become something extraordinary. It proves only that you have stopped trying to be a severed branch. And, if there were a clock behind you tonight, I suspect it is already shaking its head at me. Oh, where did the time go? We must return you to your homes, your suppers, your early mornings. But let us not break this by hurrying out of it. Let us end as we will begin tomorrow in a breath of silence. Say I within yourself, consent. Rest a moment in the government that does not sleep. Then go in peace. Wash the dish, drive the car, answer the call under the same government. In that way, wherever you are, we are together, and wherever we are together, God is the center. Good night, beloved. Live from within and let the vine live its life through you.